As we've been hearing this morning, the Taliban have seized control of Afghanistan and declared that the war in the country is over after their forces took the capital, Kabul. President Ashraf Ghani has fled the country. Hundreds of Afghans have been trying to leave. Britain and other Western countries are evacuating their citizens. The United States State Department said all staff from its embassy have been moved to Hamid Karzai's International Airport, which is said to have been secured by the American military. In the US, there's been no let-up in criticism of President Biden's decision to pull US forces out of the country. Well, let's speak now to the Conservative MP, Tom Hunt, for Ipswich. Tom, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, Lee.
So what's your view on this developing situation?
I think it's utterly depressing. I think after the huge commitment that we've made as a country over the last 20 years or so, hundreds of people have lost their lives and sacrificed to try and build a better future for the people of Afghanistan, and also a future that works in our national self-interest. I think it's also, frankly, it's remarkable how quickly this has escalated and how the situation is just disintegrated within a very short space of time. I don't think it's what anyone of us are expecting. But I think it's incredibly important now that we step up and try to be part of a solution and an effective global international response.
So how do we go about stepping up then? Does that mean that we put more troops back into the country itself, whether they be American or British?
I think at this point of time, I think it would be, I think we're a little bit way off that stark decision, but ultimately that stark decision is probably one which will come down the track at some point in the future, because it's all well and good saying, well, we need to do something and jumping up and down about it, but the reality is that we're faced with the prospect of a sort of terrorist supporting, terrorist sympathising state, and the idea that we can just turn our backs on this situation and it won't impact us here in this country, I think is wrong. I think it could do and it will do like it did last time. So, but I mean, ultimately, I do think that the decision to remove troops as quickly as they have been removed, I think, has been a mistake. I think that President Biden's been largely missing in action. I haven't agreed with how he's handled this whatsoever. And I think ultimately, it does largely fall to the United States of America on this issue to stand up and show leadership. So far, that's been sadly lacking.
So how can Britain and other countries then put pressure on the United States to say the decision you made was wrong?
Well, I mean, we are sort of a permanent member of the UN Security Council, where we've got a sort of chair of G7 at the moment, so we are in a strong position to make those points. I think, I mean, the problem about this is that none of us, want to have a war and engage in military conflict. We know that every time we think about doing this, it's potentially putting British lives at risk. We know it costs huge amount of money at a time where we're not in a great position financially because of the coronavirus, so that's something that all of us want to try and avoid. However, there's no point denying the fact that this could be a choice that we have to make in the not too distant future. Do we go in? And if we go in, there's no guarantee of success. This time round, we've been in there for 20 years and we've been trying to build up.
And most people are saying that's been a waste of time, aren't they? Because now they've all pulled out and the Taliban have gone in and taken back control of the country.
Well, it's quite remarkable and quite depressing how this has been able to happen and how a situation has disintegrated as quickly as it has. So the choice will be either we decide that we go in with all the associated risks of that, risk to British life, no guarantee of success in the long term, huge amount of money spent. The other option is we don't do anything, and we try and...
We can't afford not to do anything, though, can we?
Can't have implications for us in the UK.
We can't not afford to do anything, can we?
Well, no, I mean, we can't afford not to do anything. So I think at some point in the not-too-distant future, I think we probably will face a stark choice, because the reality is, with the Taliban regime, with what we know about the Taliban regime, I'm not entirely convinced that anything other than military intervention will actually make a difference to what's happening in Afghanistan. This is not a regime which is going to be open to productive, positive cooperation. Largely these are individuals who are, not just focused on huge abuses of human rights in their own country, in Afghanistan, and the treatment of women is appalling. Some of the stories we're already hearing is shocking. But let's be honest, this is also a regime that harbours destructive thoughts towards the West, towards ourselves, towards our own way of life. So the idea that we can just wash our hands of the situation is clearly for the birds.
The Prime Minister's recalled Parliament for Wednesday. I mean, why Wednesday? Why not today, if not tomorrow, to get this situation debated? Because obviously the Taliban took control of the country over the last 24 hours or so. So isn't he delaying tactics?
Well, I don't see how this is delaying tactics. I think that we've got Parliament recalled for Wednesday, and I think that we will have a full debate on Wednesday. I will be there on Wednesday, and I will be sitting in the chamber right throughout the whole debate. Whether I'll get an opportunity to speak or not, I don't know. I will put in to speak. I don't know whether I'll get an opportunity to speak, but I will be there to make interventions and listen to all the other speeches. But I think at some point it is likely that we're going to have to face a stark decision about whether we go back in collaboration with the United States or whether we don't.
And would you back that collaboration with the United States? Would you like to see our troops go back in to try and sort this country out from being ruled by the Taliban?
I think at this, what concerns me the most is a safe harbour for international terrorism. We saw what happened last time that was the case. We saw what happened with 9/11. We saw what happened with numerous terrorist incidents within the UK. My concern is that if we could be back in that situation, and for all we know, it could be far worse than it was last time. So, for me, the key thing would be, the potential of this regime to inflict misery and launch attacks on our own country. That would be the key thing for me that would make me potentially support that decision at some point in the future. That would be the key thing for me.
OK, Tom Hunt, I dare say we may talk to you later on in the week. Thank you very much indeed for your time this Monday morning.